our reaction to the new Tragically Hip documentary, No Dress Rehearsal. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's go back. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Gen X Unfiltered, the podcast.
What's up, everybody?
Hey.
Hello, welcome.
Thanks for joining us.
Welcome, everybody. Hi, Eric. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Good. How
Hello,
you guys?
Steve. Hello, Kelly.
Hello,
How are you both
everyone.
doing? Yeah.
We're still working on our intro, guys. You know, we're just trying to get something that hits.
Yeah, any tips or suggestions, let us know in the comments.
Or don't.
Yeah, just maybe don't. But today, it's a very Canada podcast.
It is, yes. It doesn't get much more Canadian than what we're about to talk about.
Yeah, we watched the brand new on Prime.
Yeah.
We watched the brand new Tragically Hip documentary called No Dress Rehearsal. For those of you that don't know, I mean, if you're listening from Canada, there's no way you haven't heard of the Tragically Hip.
If you haven't, I would
I'd be shocked.
be shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For those of you not in Canada, you may or may not have heard, but that's okay because they're our best little secret.
They were definitely Canada's band.
Yeah, they're
So-
like our rock band. No one else can have them.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
going to just start by really quickly saying, and then you guys can sort of say the same thing before we kind of dive into the documentary.
Okay.
But I'm just going to say, I know the Tragically Hip. I've heard their songs. I've heard tons of songs. They're all on the radio here in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and watched, not at the concert, but one of the viewing parties of the last concert they did. I knew that he had died. But that's sort of where my knowledge level stopped. I was never not a fan, but never a fan. I just knew of them. But I have to say, after watching the documentary, my opinion has definitely changed. But yeah, what about you guys?
What was your question?
Well, the question is, I'm just saying, like, you know the Tragically Hip. Are you a fan? Are you not a fan?
Oh,
Are
okay.
you, like,
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah. I was always a fan of the Hip. Yeah, that was just really weird. You didn't really ask us a question. I was like, you're talking a lot, but there's no...
Oh my gosh. Right off the top, I'm getting harassed.
No, but maybe I'm crazy, but I was just like...
Okay,
I'm not-
anyway, it's
yes,
fine.
I absolutely did try to have. I enjoyed them. I never saw them live, but
Yeah.
I always enjoy them, still do, and yeah.
I just basically wanted to know your background on the Tragically Hip, like what if you're a fan or not.
Oh, yeah, totally. I was totally a fan of the Tragically Hip. Like, they were right when I was coming up as a teenager. Like, they were really popular. So I remember, oh, wow, I think it was grade 7. A kid wore a Tragically Hip. I think it was like a Day for Night shirt. Or
Yeah.
fully completely. It was like the artwork with like the people dancing on it. I'm like, what's
Okay,
that?
yeah.
It was like Tragically Hip. They're like the best band. You have to hear them. And then after that, after grade 7, 8, probably, I just got into Tragically Hip.
Yeah,
So-
they're basically the right story, like I said. Yeah, basically because they started, they're all through our high school
Yeah.
career. They were like probably one of the biggest bands in Canada, if not the biggest.
Oh, I would
yeah.
definitely say they were probably the biggest. But so here's my other question, and you have to pick one favorite Tragically Hip song. You got to pick one. You have to, if your life depends on picking one.
If I had to pick one, it's going to be Fireworks.
Okay, Eric.
You caught me in a bad spot.
Sorry.
No,
You're-
because there's a song I really like, but I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Oh, okay. Well, what is it's not like one of their mainstream popular ones then? Or is
No,
it?
it is. It's got that bass line. It's like doon 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 doon. You caught me in a really bad spot.
Oh,
That's okay.
I know this. God damn it! It's going to bug me now because I know the.
Yeah,
Right now, everybody out there is
Yeah,
like, it's
no,
this.
I know.
I'll go with Ahead by a Century because I can't remember the
Okay.
other song's name.
For my limited...
Grace 2.
Grace 2, that's
Oh.
it. The bass line in Grace 2. Thank you very much, Steve.
Yeah.
Is like I love it. I think it's a great intro to a song.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
great song.
If I had to pick one just on my limited knowledge of songs, like I would pick Head by a Century too. I feel like it's just like an anthem.
Yeah, I picked Grace 2, so I changed
But
my
you
answer.
at first you picked it.
That was my
fair
backup.
enough. Your backup.
I was
Yeah.
going to go with Wheat Kings. That's another great one.
Oh, We
Yeah.
King's
Rock
really
Cages is a
good.
great song. There's
But
a ton of like
it was life or death. You had to pick one.
Fireworks for me, just because of maybe we'll get into it later, but that
Yeah.
was definitely my
Yeah.
favorite one.
So the documentary really just overall, like the documentary, I thought did a really good job of explaining their whole career, like how they whatever. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was about to agree with you. I was just waiting for you to.
One thing that I will say, I guess, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of stuff that maybe you guys didn't know that you learned in the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know the history, but I didn't realize like they were all since like high school ish.
I knew like they went to Queens and stuff like that together. I didn't realize that some of them had been friends since they were like the two guys lived across the street when they were like 1.5 and like 3 years old.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
They
Like,
played when they were like little kids together.
yeah. So like their history goes way back,
So-
which is actually really, really cool.
Really quickly, I guess, for anybody who doesn't know the Tragically Hip, and I'll just give a really quick little do of sort of the years that they were, whatever, their formation, early years, they formed in 1984 in Kingston, Ontario.
Kingston, Ontario, on the
Yeah.
shores of Lake
Where
Ontario.
it all began.
There ain't much there except for the Tragically Hip and Kingston Penitentiary.
It's pretty much
Penitentiary.
the stopping point between
And
if you're
university.
driving from Toronto to Montreal.
Yeah.
That's always sort of your stopping point is Kingston.
Yeah.
A lot of history there.
Oh, of course.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
teasing. I mean, it's super historical, and
Home
it's
of
like
Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
Kirk
Is
Muller
it?
from the Montreal Canadiens.
Dan Aykroyd's from there.
Did you pay attention to this documentary at all?
I did. I know he was in it, but I didn't know he was born there.
100%. Yeah.
There's a lot of it. There was 4 hours of information I had to retain.
He literally
Yeah.
was on the stage of Saturday Night Live as the host and said,
He introduced them. Yeah.
"From
I
my
saw
hometown
that.
of Kingston, Ontario, the home of Kirk Muller." He read off a couple other people.
Yeah.
but I
And
thought
tragically, my friends are tragically hip.
I thought he was just doing the whole Canada thing, where like every hometown.
No,
is
he's
No, no.
actually yeah, no,
Okay.
Yeah, he was being very
Fair
literal
enough.
there.
Kingston,
Yeah.
And then obviously in that time, I mean, there's a lot of whatever. So the members who stayed the members till the end
Yep.
was Gord Downey with the vocals, which we'll obviously talk about him. Rob Baker guitar, Paul Langlois
Lingua.
Langlois.
guitar, Gord Sinclair bass, and Johnny Fay drums. Go Johnny!
Go,
You're
Johnny.
saying you kind of got a little soft spot for Johnny watching the documentary.
I
huh?
mean, like the now Johnny. I'm like, Johnny, damn, because when he's playing the drums, it's like woo, and then he stops and he's like a 60-year-old like grandpa. It's weird. I'm like, Johnny.
Yeah, you were very polarized. When he took his glasses off, you were like, oh, Johnny. And then
With
you
the
put his glasses
little-
on, you're like, oh.
The
Yeah.
little black like T-shirt, just rocking out like he's
to
20.
get a good exercise playing, smacking those skins around. It's
Johnny,
yeah.
I'm a fan. So obviously they had a bunch of records. I'm not going to go into the details of all that stuff, but I think the biggest why they're doing a documentary about the Tragically Hip, other than they're very historic and very whatever, was that for those of you that don't know, Gord Downey, the lead singer, had a tragic cancer diagnosis in 2015, like brain cancer, incurable. They went on a final tour of Canada. And then he ultimately passed away in October of 2017, which was like our prime minister was on TV crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. It was huge. I mean, like, 'cause these guys, like, they had obviously it was a super quick synopsis
Yeah.
of their history, but
Yeah, yeah.
they had was it 5 or 6 #1 albums in this
They,
country?
they did 6 #1 albums
Back
in a row.
to back,
Yeah.
they were from their early, late '80s, early '90s to the 2000s. They were huge in this country.
Well, and I think
they still are.
Well-
Yeah.
They were massive.
and I think one of the reasons why they were so, I mean, we're going to talk about them going to the US and all that stuff, but one of the
Yeah.
biggest reasons why I think they were just so culturally impactful for Canada and just hit hard was because they all their songs had deep ties to Canadian identity and culture and politics, and Gord Downey was passionate about the indigenous communities and
Yeah.
supporting
Yeah.
them and helping them.
Like they're unapologetically Canadian.
Oh,
in
yeah.
in their image, in their music.
Yeah.
They weren't trying to masquerade as an American rock band and just
No.
kind of fit in. They were like, no, we're Canadian. And they sang very much about Canadian, places, themes.
Yeah,
And they-
stuff we could all relate to.
and
Yeah.
they held Canada to that was their priority, was
Yeah.
the people of Canada and performing for them. That
Well,
was
yes.
always their priority.
they were, just 5 guys from Kingston, Ontario, who sang about what they knew, right? And that's
Yeah.
exactly what they did. They didn't try and change that up to be
Yeah.
hey, well, you know what? Singing about this isn't going to work south of the border, so let's not
Yeah.
do that, or let's try and
Well-
And
change.
that's what they said in the documentary. In the documentary, they had interviews from other people, and they had the Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah.
And Bubbles is saying, that's what they loved about the Tragically Hip, is you could picture them as just being guys who would pump your gas.
Yeah.
As easily as they could be, performing in front of 60,000 people.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You could see these guys he looks like a guy who could work at the
The
gas
Pick of Canada,
station
yeah.
or work at the mill, work at wherever. Yeah.
No, Gord Downey, to me, watching this documentary, obviously there was footage from when they kind of first started out to the end. For me, he was, I know you sort of mentioned it after, but I didn't realize, to me, he was such a polarizing character because he was just so different every time he was on. He wasn't different, but I don't even know how to explain it. He was just a very eccentric.
He
But,
definitely had a very unique stage presence for sure. Like he would get kind of like spastic and like
in the earlier days and like
in the later ones he kind of decided he was like, I'm kind of tired of doing this. I want to try to chill out a bit. So he started playing the guitar more. So he couldn't do that. But
remember they said they plugged him into an amp. He's like, plug me into an amp so I can't run across the stage and jump up and down.
Yeah, he kind of got tired of it. But he definitely had like, you watch some of their performances and a very unique
The one guy described him as being sort of like Michael Stipe-ish, but also sort of like...
Yes, that's it.
Michael Stipe was always very spastic in his dance moves.
Or even like Scott Weiland from the Stone Temple Pilots would kind of do these weird like dance move kind of things.
Yeah, and Dan Aykroyd actually said like, he was... Some people like James Brown, he dances to like the rhythm.
Yeah.
And whereas Gord Downey, he danced to... Like, he was acting with the lyrics.
Yeah.
More or less.
It was interesting to watch, but some people thought it was really cool. I think other people thought it was like kind of corny. And I think in the end, obviously he couldn't speak for himself, but it sounded like they kind of said Gord Downey kind of felt it was...
He thought that,
a little corny.
He didn't want to do that anymore.
What did he say when he didn't want to be a clown, right?
No,
he was kind of laughing. I was like, I don't...
Yeah. I mean, to me, like, there was clips of him on stage in a basic regular t-shirt and like baggy jeans singing, and then another performance he's wearing like leather pants and a cowboy hat. I'm like, he's so just like...
No,
you never really know what you're going to get.
You can tell by what, like, these guys dressed...
How they wanted.
They didn't have, if they did, but they didn't have like professional stylists telling them what to wear. I don't think. And if they did, it was basically on their style. It wasn't like, hey, all you guys should wear the same outfits. All you guys should
exactly
dress like this or wear that or like it was just they were wearing what they wanted to wear.
Yeah, the one thing they said Gord Downey for him in his attire was like a constant was the big belt buckle, and I guess he idolized Jim Morrison, and that's where he.
That's what the girl thought that might have been his.
Yeah, his nod to Jim Morrison was the belt buckle. Yeah.
Okay, so we've kind of jumped all over the place, but let's just kind of go to the beginning of the documentary and then just sort of sweep through it of sort of interesting or major timeline things that happened. Like we said, it was kind of university, late high school where they kind of formed and met, and there were a few of them were a part of different bands, and you know how the story goes.
It's pretty crazy how much footage they had of like those times, like the early days, and they have a ton of footage in there of like they even had like a audio tape of like their first like concert. They were playing Let's Shake by
Teenage Head
and stuff like that.
You have to remember, like, a lot of bands and stuff would record their performances.
But they were like 12 years old, which is crazy. That's what I'm saying. Like, they were young. Like, they were playing like their middle school like concert and stuff like that. So it's cool that they have that.
Okay, so I remember in the early part of the documentary when they were talking, because what was their name before the Tragically Hip? I can't remember.
Oh, there was two separate bands, the Slinks and like Rodent. Robbie and the Rodents or something like that.
So they were doing they basically just started doing like small little shows like bars and like all that kind of thing. Like I think he said they did like every bar in the general area, like,
Well, they were like this, they were just playing all covers and stuff like that. And then they had that other guy in the band, the sax player, and his name is on that sheet.
It's right there.
No, it's right here.
Okay. But, Steve's looking for that. But one of the interesting things is like they were doing a poster for a show. Remember that? And they had their name. And at the very last second, they're like, no, we're the Tragically Hip now.
Yeah, they just changed the last second.
Do you remember why they said they named Tragically Hip? I forget.
It was because...
There was a reason.
There was a show that one of the former Monkees had on TV.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What was his name? Michael Naismith? Do you have it there on your note?
No, it's on those. But that's exactly what it was. It was the Michael Naismith had that show, the Elephant something or other. It
was like a variety show or something. And the one of the sketches, the guy
he referred to somebody
Elephant Parts.
Yeah,
Elephant Parts. Thank you.
And he referred to someone as being tragically hip. And it was something that
stuck with
Gord, and then was like, and then they were going on their first show, and they're like, oh, let's just
change the name.
Yeah, they showed the flyer and they changed it.
They had a weird, I can't remember the name.
It was something in the Rodents.
It was no, it wasn't. It was something about like the squeaky mattress symphony or something like that. It was something really dumb.
So they gained attention by playing small clubs and bars around Ontario, which we already said. Their breakthrough with Up to Here in 1989 to 1991. There's released in 1987. The released self-entitled EP, The Tragically Hip, that had Blow at High Dough and New Orleans Sinking. Oh, I didn't know those songs were so old.
Yeah, that was.
They came up in the late '80s when they first started.
But I didn't realize like those popular songs were that like early.
Yeah.
So they say their sound is known for their unique blend of rock and Downey's poetic lyrics. The lyrics are definitely like they all said at one point they're like, he's not a songwriter, he's a poet.
Oh yeah, like his lyrics and stuff.
Because sometimes you're like, what does that mean?
Well, you listen to their songs and like there's a lot of different layers of meaning and stuff in there, and they don't always necessarily sort of tie together. Like it's not always. Some of them are a story, but the way he tells it and stuff like that, it's really he has a very unique.
So
style.
They were obviously becoming Canadian successes. But they always struggled for similar recognition in the U.S. Then their peak of popularity is 1992 to 1997.
Yeah, that was
peak hip.
Yeah.
1992 was Fully Completely, one of their most successful albums with Courage and Wheat Kings.
Great songs.
1994, Day for Night was a darker, more experimental phase, but it had Grace too, which is very popular.
My favorite song.
Isn't that a sad song? I remember them talking about it.
Yeah, but it's very emotional, especially that was the last song they sang, wasn't it? At
that
their
was
concert?
About that young boy that died, wasn't it? Or was that a different song?
No, that was a different song.
There's so much sadness.
That was Fiddler's Green.
Fiddler's Green.
But his nephew that passed away was like 3 from congenital heart defect, and
sad.
And the bass player's brother passed away from the same thing when he was like 15 at like a high school dance.
Yeah. Oh my god.
We should
crazy.
Should also really note that this documentary was directed and produced by Gord Downey's brother.
That's what I was going to say, Mike Downey, right?
Which I feel like made it that much more intimate and emotional.
Yeah, it was kind of weird sometimes where like the guys, interviewing, being in the band talking, and like they'd be like, "Hey, your brother," and like just they were just talking to Mike. They kind of felt like the camera was there.
But
and
I felt that made it more raw. Like it wasn't so like And
I like the fact that it seemed like they didn't try and. It wasn't a whole like everything was shiny happy. These guys were like the best friends forever, and like they actually told the story.
Well, we'll get to that.
But so he did a really good job with it. Yeah.
So then, Trouble at the Hen House, 1996, featured the popular single "Ahead by a Century," which again I thought that song was older.
No, that was from like.
That's like mid, towards the end, of their popular run.
So they were doing lots of live performances. This is where they were doing like, isn't this where they did like Maple Leaf Gardens and stuff in this like era?
Yeah,
I imagine so.
Yeah.
They did a lot of festivals too.
Yeah, so it was they were known for their legendary live shows and Downey's magnetic stage presence, which you have to say, you're just like, whoa, like
he really got like lost in the performance of it all.
That's a perfect way to put it, though. Is like it's almost like he's obviously performing for the people, but like. He was just lost in the art of doing it.
No, 100%. They made some comments. You'd see like his eyes would be closed, and he'd just be singing,
rolling in the back of his head,
going whatever, and like he was in his own kind of world there. Yeah.
And was it him that made the comment, or one of the other guys? Because they did have interview bits from him, obviously years past.
Yeah.
But was it him that said that? Somebody was like, "Oh, you should be like you are on stage in real life," or something like that.
He's He's kind of like, should I be more like I am? On stage, off stage, or should I be more like I am off stage, on stage? Like, which is the, because...
Yeah, off stage, he wasn't like wild.
No, he wasn't like some wild, crazy. He seemed like a fairly even-keeled, reserved guy. And then he'd be on stage, flailing and jumping and doing all sorts of stuff. And it's like, well, should I be more like that in my personal life, or should I tone it down on stage?
Yeah.
But I get it, though. You're the music, you got all these people cheering and yelling and all this stuff. Like, just imagine the feeling to be going through.
Just deep down for him, it was just about the art. Like I obviously wanted to make the fans happy, like they said, and I think this is like any artist. It's like, you go out there and you are doing it for the people that are spending their hard-earned money to watch you. You're going to show up and you're going to perform.
Yeah, when they said they would, they learned quickly when they were starting out, like how to play for a room full of people or an empty room, and how to bring that same energy regardless either show, because when you're trying to cut your teeth out there.
Yeah,
you can't really, you can't really afford to have a bad show, right? So you got to just, whether there's one person or 100,000 people, you got to
also feel like that keeps you humble too, because you should play with the same energy if one person's in the crowd versus
ideally, but it's not easy.
Of course not, because you feed off energy, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And imagine you've just especially when you're starting out, you're driving in some like shitty van with 5 people. You drive hours and you show up, and you're already probably tired. You're not making a ton of money, and there's nobody fucking there. You're like.
Another point
wind out of your sails.
That just reminded me of when you said that. What else I thought was actually kind of cool and unique was like, again, these are like small town boys who are friends since they were teenagers, in some cases earlier. But what I thought was really cool is when they were talking about those early days and their first day, all of their parents were like the most supportive ever. Their 17-year-old kids are coming to them being like, "Hey, I want to go like cross country and be a rock star."
The drummer was
Johnny Faye.
Faye.
His mom bought the van.
Yeah.
And she also got him into the school in the States, the music school.
Berkeley,
Berkeley.
Yeah.
Without even any drums, she got him down. She drove him down there, convinced the instructor to listen to her son.
Yeah.
He played, and it was like, okay. The instructor was like, okay, get your drums. You're in.
Yeah.
They didn't have any drums.
Yeah.
So she went across the road to that like small shop,
pawn shop,
and bought him a small set of drums.
But like, how Canadian is that?
Oh, I know. Like, they definitely had it. And that's the thing. I think they kind of said it too. Like, having that support from the get go really helped them because it's like any. Yeah. I'm sure like anybody will tell you like anything, starting anything new.
Well, let's be real. If you had an 18-year-old son who was going to drop out of school to become a rock star, you'd be like,
it's really?
Yeah.
Like anything, you'd be like, at least hey, give it a couple of years, see what happens, and then
have that backup plan ready to go.
And I think that it was just right from the beginning. They had the support to
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, when they wanted to start touring, their mom helped them get that van and stuff like that, so they could actually get outside of because Kingston, Canada is a huge country for people who don't know our geography.
Yeah,
Kingston is sort of in the middle of
nowhere.
Maybe not quite, but it's right in the middle between Toronto and Montreal, and it's nothing really around there. So if you want to, it's 2.5 hours, 3 hours to Toronto. It's another 2.5 hours to Montreal.
Yeah.
Well, here's
2 hours to Ottawa. So like nothing's close up there.
And that's what they said, right? Like we'll talk about the U.S. part too, but they're like, in Canada, to go on a cross-country road trip playing in bars, you could drive for 12 hours before you hit the next bar. In the States, like boom, boom, boom,
you
boom,
can
boom,
do
boom,
like
boom,
they
boom.
said, like you could go on the road for like 3 weeks, and every 5 hours hit another spot where you're going to play for the night. Whereas in Canada, once you get out of like Southern Ontario, you could literally be driving for like 12 hours or more to get to one place, and that's for, within the same province still. Like you haven't even got to another province yet. So
Canada is huge, folks.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah, it's big, and so that's exactly what they said. It's it's just physically a lot of work just to tour, not even just the band part, but like the transportation part of it.
Yeah, so like you were saying, Steve, Canada's huge. It's hard it's not as easy to tour Canada by a van.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but that kind of one of the biggest criticisms I guess they would get in the press was, oh, you guys haven't made it, and why can't you hack it in the US? Why can't you hack it in the US?
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, that was kind of a question I asked you guys. I was like, wait, they weren't really popular in the States, and you guys are like, no, and I was like, oh, I wonder if they'll sort of talk about it.
Oh yeah, there was a.
And I do have to say, this was probably like almost like where I was like, wow, like I wish I had paid attention to who these guys were more, because so They did tour in the U.S.
Oh yeah, and they
were fine. They had shows.
They said that they're like, people who are criticizing us for not making it in the States have never been to our shows in the States. Obviously,
yeah,
exactly. They played small venues, like they weren't playing stadiums.
No, they weren't doing arena tours down there. But they said every big theater, every big location, any band would ever want to play, they played. Just not. They didn't do stadium tours.
Yeah, exactly. And then their album sales didn't take off in the States either.
Yeah,
but
they were okay with that. They're like.
I think that's the major conclusion, right? It's like, you know what? Like, we have our fan base in Canada. Like, our measure of success isn't necessarily making it big in the States.
Well, no, but I think their point too was that we did make it in the States.
To them, they made it.
They did. They're like, we did do fine in the States. The people who are saying we didn't.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know our band.
Exactly. And then, they did say, their priority is Canada. They're like, these are our people. We are Canadian. This is where we want to put our energy into.
Well, not even that. We want to sing about what we want to sing about. We want to talk about what we want to talk about. And if that resonates with Canada and not so much the U.S. or Europe, and whatever, we're just going to do what we want to do.
They were more successful in Europe than they were in the
US. I was kind of curious because, obviously in the documentary they sort of talked, obviously in Canada they were really
massive,
big. Yeah. In the States, obviously, which makes sense too. I mean, they were a Canadian band, so they're not going to have that, they were, us. They were for us.
Yeah.
Well, they were, and we keep saying it, but if you've never listened to the songs and the people that have, the stuff they're talking about in their songs isn't really going to resonate with anybody who doesn't know what they're talking about.
Well, the one point they brought up, the song 50 Mission Cap, it's all about an NHL player,
Bill Barocco,
who died in the 60s, or no, the 50s, I guess, in a plane. He won the Stanley Cup with the Maple Leafs, died on a fishing trip and they never found he disappeared for 12 years. Mm-hmm. And the Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup. The guy died, disappeared. The same year they found his body, 12 years later, the Leafs won the cup again. So it's kind of this weird story.
Yeah.
And the guy made a comment, he's like, no, but even in Canada, like...
I didn't know that story.
No.
I remember as a kid, it popped out, and this is where he found it. It was on a hockey card.
That's my favorite part of that whole song. Where he's like, he admits in the song, he's like, I stole this from a hockey card. I keep tucked up under my 50 mission cap.
Yeah, he basically, on this hockey card, it had a picture of Bill Brooklyn scoring the winning goal in the Leafs game in the 50s, and then the story about him disappearing. And he basically, word for word, sang what was on the card.
Lyric,
But like how... watching the documentary, it's like you just feel like, at least for me, I was like, it just makes you be like a proud Canadian watching it.
Well, no, but that's the thing they said. Like, Canada has our history. There's lots of these interesting stories and all this stuff out there that just people don't know about for whatever reason.
Good and bad.
So they were like, let's talk about those things that we find fascinating and interesting about what we know.
So, by their standards, they were successful in the States. They were happy with what they accomplished. They didn't want more. They wanted to stay home in Canada and focus on the people that, were the people that were there when they were in their garage strumming on guitars.
Yeah, and like you said, they showed them over, and they went over to like Europe, like in the UK, and then like Scandinavia, like Norway and stuff like that. And they were like, they were really popular over there. It was just,
Wait, which reminds me of a story maybe we weren't going to forget it, but I was almost going to forget it. That whole Tower Records thing. This is where I was like, oh my God, you are like what every Canadian should be.
And that
this is the second example of them not selling out, right? Like, example number one is we're not going to just try and make it big in the States for the sake of making it big.
We're not going to just sing about Americans or just more generic things. We're going to sing about what we want.
Exactly. And then second, the Tower Records story, which is basically the one of the execs of Tower Records, he wanted to play on top of one of their stores, and
was it the New York store?
No, I think they were going to open one in Toronto.
Toronto,
Which I don't remember there ever being a Tower Records, to be honest. But
part of the deal was if they played the concert on top of the store, they were going to make sure that their new album was going to be front and center in all the Tower Records.
Yeah.
Yes.
Across the world, not just in Canada, but
exactly. So, which is going to ideally take their record sales way through the roof.
Yeah, we're going to put you in the faces of Tower Records customers across the continent, the globe.
And their response was, "We really shop more at Sam and the Record Man."
We're Sam the Record Man,
which is a very Canadian record store.
Yeah, they were basically we don't shop at Tower Records.
Yeah.
So, we're not going to do this concert just to get our album placed better in Tower Records.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't shop there. It's an American company. Come to Canada. We don't think they should be here.
And they wanted to support a Canadian record store. Yeah. Which is actually really funny because that Sam the Record Man kind of bit them in the ass after.
Yeah.
Remember because they had that magazine they put out?
Yeah.
And it was like a shit article about them.
Yeah.
Basically talking about why they are not
successful in the States.
What's wrong with them because they're not as big in the States as they are in Canada.
So they support Sam the Record Man, and very Canadian. We like to attack our heroes. And, they're trying to clip down a peg.
But like in that convolute, we all got a little excited talking about that story. Sorry, but I'm just saying. But the overall thing was the fact that like they were like, no, we shop at Sam the Record Man. It's a Canadian company. We're not gonna, in their minds, sell out to Tower Records, which maybe or maybe not would have upped their success level. We don't know.
Who knows what it would have done?
But they didn't care.
Yeah, no, like, we're not gonna. We don't think, because again, they kind of made the comment too, like Tower Records is a giant American corporation coming into Canada to try and sell records. Like, no.
Well, they wanted to support Canadian retailers.
Yeah, look after Sam the Record Man and the local guys. Yeah.
And
that was super cool.
That was just where I was like, wow, because let's be real, like when you're obviously, I mean, I shouldn't say for every, but like if you're in a group or an act or a movie star, whatever you are, you always want to be more and more and more and more successful.
Yeah.
But they had already reached in their mind success.
Well, they were content. They were like making music. They were making with their friends in high school. They were like very, very happy with it.
And they could do it for a living.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they were getting paid to do it and making, very successful, especially like, here in Canada. And like even they were touring internationally, selling out arenas here around the country and stuff. It's like we're doing just fine.
So and then at some point in there, I can't remember, it was after the Trouble at the Hen House era, I think, but then they ended up purchasing a house in Bath, Ontario, which became like their studio. Maybe it was earlier than that, because they were going to New Orleans for they
were kind of going all over the place to record albums.
So now they were self-producing, which they're like, it's easier, it's on our own time, we can like get together, it's not so rushed.
Yeah, we can sort of take our time and get together and have someone kind of close to go record and practice and write songs and stuff. Yeah.
So in continued evolution, That's what the internet tells me. 1998 to 2011, Phantom Power was in 1998, another critically acclaimed album, winning 2 Juno Awards.
Then Fireworks is on that album, just saying.
Then Exploring New Sounds, albums like In Violet Light and World Container, those came out in 2002, 2006, showcased their musical evolution with more diverse arrangements and production.
Yeah, I think those albums were not as big as...
No.
Phantom Power's sort of the last big one, then they kind of, like any band, right? Like, it's cyclical, and that's the thing, too. Like, you know, you reach... Well,
you can't stay on top forever.
No, and after so many years and being on top...
So, at this point in time, they had consistent chart-topping releases in Canada, and this even bugs me that they keep saying this, but though international success remained elusive, but not to them, just to everybody else, who felt like they had a need to say what made them successful. That makes me mad. No. They were successful in
No, it's basically like if you're not selling out arenas, around the world, you're not a success.
And I feel like it's almost this, like, obviously they made the choice to not do these things that, again, may or may not have upped their success. But I also feel like if they had have, and they had have been like world popular and all this stuff, they just wouldn't be the same that their legacy is today.
I don't think so. I think you're right. I think it would have been a totally different
legacy.
Yeah, 100% it would have been. I think
it's just weird how things like, you know, what do they call that? Sliding doors, one decision, whatever.
Yeah,
and like, you know,
impacts the decisions down the road.
And I just don't think they would be such an iconic part of Canadian history per se, or like it
would have been different.
Yeah,
it would have been less like our own band, I think.
Yeah,
no, 100%, and there are plenty of big bands that have come out of Canada that have had international, like Nickelback, Rush, Drake,
but like
Justin, all these guys, but they aren't looked at this like the Tragically Hip was like.
They looked at a different light.
Like at this, they were Canada's band.
But think about it.
A lot of people
think about what in the thing. So like they continued through their whole entire life and career to live in Kingston.
Yeah.
They stayed in Kingston. They had their families in Kingston. At one point, Gord Downey did move to Toronto, but we'll talk about that. But like they all stayed in Kingston, whereas like all these other people, what's the first thing they do? They moved to
LA. Or New York.
Right?
Yeah.
And these guys were, and it was just like, I could never imagine them doing that, just based on what you hear from them.
Yeah.
No, and I think honestly, that's why there was such a thing. It's like nobody else kind of gets them.
No.
They do. Yeah. They have success in the States. They have success in Europe, but not the same level here. And it was like Americans don't understand these guys. They don't understand. No, because they're not. Americans aren't Canadians, right?
Well, you know what?
Is it Wheat Kings with the loon in the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like an American, in the South hears that it's gonna have not the same meaning as it does for us, right? Like how many of us have heard the son of a loon like in Northern Ontario? Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, hell, we call our dollar coin a loonie.
Yeah,
a loon is on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. It's just they're singing for us, about what we know. So if Americans can embrace and enjoy it, awesome, and a lot of them did.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are just going to be like, they can't relate to like stories about what's a prime minister, who's David Milgaard, who's Bill Barilko, the Toronto Maple Leafs hockey, and all this stuff. Like it's just that's not
the 100th Meridian.
Like what we all grew up, we know like this. This is our life. This is how we grew up with these same experiences and these same topics and stuff like that. So that
I'm pretty sure if you're in Canada and you've ever had a campfire, at one point in time, a Tragically Hip song has been playing on the radio or the phone.
Probably Wheat Kings. That's a solid one.
I mean, even I know that song. Like I said, I was not, but I know a lot of these songs.
Well, I mean, the Tragically Hip, they're like the unofficial soundtrack of like cottage country.
Oh yeah, like it is them all the time out there. Like, well, hell, they have a song called Bob Cajun. Which. Anybody doesn't know, Bob Cajun is like a location here up in Ontario, like cottage country.
Yeah. Okay. This is the part where we kind of get into the it's very sad. Like we all know the story and we all were around when it happened, and but watching that documentary, I was like, I could tell you guys were trying.
Oh yeah, it was hard to watch. It was really sad. It was emotional. Yeah.
I think because honestly, like this, the biggest testimony to who Gord Downey was, his bandmates and all them talking about him. You could feel the love, and you could feel the admiration. You could feel that and so it just made you be like, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, you can tell they were still.
Okay.
But they're still processing everything still.
Oh yeah, they weren't over it at
all. Before the sort of diagnosis and stuff, they hit a rough spot. Which I'll let you explain it, but I just want to say really quickly, they had our Much Music that I'm not going to say anything because Steve and I are going to argue if you watch any of our podcasts. Much Music is like MTV. in Canada. And Bill Welychka, if you know, you know, he was interviewed in this documentary. And one of the biggest things...
Bill Welychka?
No, the other guy.
George Stroumboulopoulos.
Eric, you screwed me up because we were talking about Bill Welychka and George Stroumboulopoulos.
It's my fault.
I was just like, why do you say if you know, you know? Because Bill Welychka has no dirt on him, or there's nothing wrong with Bill Welychka. Okay, I'm just saying that's the way you said it. I just want to say Bill Welychka's...
The whole, if you know, you know, meaning if you watch Mets music, you know who he is.
No, but just the way you said it, was like,
God.
There's no like weirdness.
There's no weird dirt on Bill Welychka.
Or some of that.
No, it was more like people are going to be like, Bill who?
He was a VJ, a Much Music VJ.
Every time.
Anyways, George Stroumboulopoulos was the Much Music VJ.
Yes, and he was being interviewed, and he said that, like, well, let Steve talk about sort of the behind the scenes stuff that was happening at this point in time. But he said, but the people in the media or the fans didn't know. Like, I think this was all news to us watching this, because he said the Canadian press didn't ever want to talk about it because they were so sacred, and it was like, no, it was so like,
whether that's true or not, who knows? I know he was just assuming that,
right? But I get it, because nobody would want to hear that.
Well, no, you always want to assume these guys are all best friends,
and I'm not gonna lie, if this is where this whole weird universe thing, and I mean, God forbid, you don't want anybody to get sick and die. I mean, that's not, but like, I don't know if they all would have come together again, how they did if he hadn't have gotten sick.
It sure didn't seem like that.
You know what I mean?
It seemed very much like a band apart.
And how like epic for somebody like Gord Downie, who is so poetic, so spiritual, so everything, to be, you know, he unfortunately, but like to be the... Isn't that just crazy to think about?
Yeah, no.
His death kind of maybe brought them all together. But anyway.
But it's sort of like, you know, how things progress in life generally. You know, like when you're 20 years old, you're all together.
Yeah.
And then as life goes on, they have their families. They're spending less time together.
But it's not so much that. It's like that whole, like, you know...
That was part of it, though.
No, it was. But they had that whole, like, thing, and I had to walk away from TV for a few minutes, so I missed part of it. What are they talking about? They were fighting. They had people come in.
They were definitely infighting. There was a couple of times, right? Like where Gord... Early on, he said, I want to sing my lyrics.
Yeah.
And so the rest of the band was kind of cut out of the songwriting process.
Yeah, that was an interesting... I was surprised. Hearing that, I was like, oh, that's...
Which is weird, because you wouldn't
I'm surprised they made it past that.
Yeah, exactly, because that was early on. Like,
so I don't know if you want to sort of elaborate just quickly in case people don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we're jumping a little, because we watched it, so we...
Yeah. So early on in their career of the Tragically Hip, a lot of the other band members contributed, you know, songs, music, lyrics, and stuff. But Gord Downie at... maybe like after the first album, I think, or second album, he said basically, I only want to sing my lyrics. He's like, I'm performing. You guys all play instruments. My voice is my instrument.
Yeah.
So I just want to sing my own lyrics. And so there's a bit of a bone of contention with some of the other bandmates.
I can see that. Like, but into Gord's he did say though, he's like, I don't want all the credit though either for the song. So
he exactly split it even the publishing rights.
Yeah, because that's what I thought at first. I'm like, maybe someone's got in his ear being like, hey, you're gonna make all your money off of the lyrics and stuff, you know, the songwriting credits and that. But he's like, no. We all write these, so all songs are written, you know, we all split the publishing rights. I just want to write them all.
In a way, though, like, and I get how it could be, like, contentious, but in a way, though, I couldn't see it any other way because he was so passionate and the lyrics and the poetry meant so much to me. How could, like, you saw me, he was in it.
No, but the fact that if it had been that way from day one,
of course,
would be different.
I agree.
But the fact that they were like already sort of established as the band, then to just be like, "Hey guys, by the way,
you
can't write songs anymore."
That's shitty.
Well, it's just like that's kind of what some people said too. Like the fact that they survived that is, you know, that's a that's a big deal for these guys they're all creative, right? So all of a sudden it's like, but you can't be that creative that in this band now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and then the band started drifting apart in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And Gord Downie had his own solo album.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
that's another thing they kind of were like, oh.
Yeah, it's like, we kind of thought this might happen, but here it is. So they're kind of wondering, like, you know, if this is successful, is this like the end of our band?
At this time, too, Gord had moved to Toronto, which isn't far. It's 2.5 hours, but it eliminated that we're 5 minutes down the street, let's get together and jam.
They couldn't just get together for a beer or to jam, that stuff, right?
Exactly. All of a sudden it became more of an...
And so that took... Because I think one of the biggest...
And this is where the family comes into play too, right? Because all the families at that point in time.
Yeah.
So all the guys in Kingston were with their family. Gord had to leave his family to come to Kingston.
Yeah.
So for him, it was a bigger task.
Yeah.
Bigger sacrifice.
And I think one of the biggest things too is like, not only was it harder to get together to make the music, but like, well, you just said it quickly, but kind of to that point, which I think was what made them that extra close knit, was like, he's like, we couldn't just go to the bar and have a beer and shoot the shit anymore.
No, exactly. All
Toronto.
that. Yeah, their dynamics changed immensely there.
Yeah.
So I can't remember exactly. So for, you know, if you guys do, But it was quite a few years where they didn't talk to each other, wasn't it? Or was that after his death? I can't remember.
No, that after the death, they took a...
Okay,
yeah.
so all this stuff's going on. They were in the middle of... wait, I'm just going to read this really quickly.
That riot?
Okay, so in 2015, he was diagnosed with cancer. They talk about... What riot?
Oh, that's the lyric.
It's a lyric.
Oh, I was like, did you see?
In the middle of that riot.
It took me a minute to like, I was like, did I miss a part?
Bob Cajun lyric.
Yeah. So 2015 he was diagnosed. They talk about it, how they all sort of got the news.
Yeah,
and right from the top, it was basically like, it's uncurable. You're gonna die. And
he was basically out for a walk with his mom, and he had like a seizure.
Yeah, he says like something's wrong with my legs.
Yeah, I gotta sit down.
He had
like a seizure, and then they did a MRI or a CAT scan, and we're like, there's a jelly bean sized tumor.
And it's like glioblastoma. It's a very, very like awful brain cancer. It's incurable, and it's
okay. But so there was basically and this is it. Like this you are not going to get past this.
Yeah, exactly. And how awful. Like they said, where that tumor or the type of cancer that was, it affected his memory and his speech.
Yeah, which as a songwriter and a singer and to
the key pieces I need to do my job.
Well, okay, so then that happened. He calls the bandmates. He tells them, they're all just like, what? Yeah,
devastated.
Like, how do you even? Well, he's like, how do you even process that?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, because at that point, like we said, they were on sort of rocky terms, and whatnot. Like they're still putting out music, but there was a little more contentious process, and then this happens, and just kind of.
And during this time, they were working on an album. So in 2016, so he got the diagnosis in 2015, and then 2016, it was revealed to everybody through their website, and it was just like, whoa.
Yeah, I remember hearing that, because then they had a press conference with his doctors and not with the band, but the doctors. And I think it was like their agents or managers or some of that.
Let's be real. I mean, these people are telling the world that like he is going to die. It's not, we're going to treat him and he may get back. No, he is going to die. We just don't know how long before he dies.
It was like, he is very, this is not recoverable and not curable.
So what does Gord Downey do? He decides to call up the guy. It's almost like a dying wish, right?
That's basically what they said.
He's like, he called them up and he said, I want to do one more tour.
Yeah.
And they were like, whoa, no way. And he's like, nope, I want one more tour all across Canada.
Yeah.
I want to do it. So they were doing rehearsals. It was so freaking sad. They were recording one of their first rehearsals for it.
Yeah.
And like Eric said, it was the memory, and his speech was okay then, but it was the memory and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And, they go up, they start playing the guitars, like it's the rehearsal, and he stands up to the mic, and the one guy, I can't remember which one, said he looked over at me and he couldn't remember the words.
He was just like, I don't know.
Yeah. He didn't know the words to his own songs.
Yeah.
And so they came up with this crazy system I remember hearing about, but they talked about it where it was like all the lyrics were written on a teleprompter, but they had up and down arrows for high notes, low notes. It was all color coded. So his brain was like...
Remember the color coding?
Yeah, it was based on his pen he would use.
Yeah.
He always had one of those pens that had like, those little plastic pens that would have like 4 different colors in it.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. Like, it was literally like, from what I gather, how they were talking, like, he would say something and then 3 minutes later couldn't remember it sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, it was that.
Like, it was quite,
His recall was gone.
And it's crazy because, like, that. And how incredibly just, like, devastating is that as or even your friends seeing that, being like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, the guitarist, he was like, up until, like, the day before the concert, he was like, this isn't going to happen.
Well, they all were like, you know what, we're going to go along with this because this is what he wants. But there's no way we're pulling this off.
Well, they just thought that physically he's not going to be able to.
Because he even looked... The saddest thing to me was in that clip is, like, his face. There was just nothing there. He was completely like, I don't know what's going on.
The life was drained.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So
it was just like...
Yeah, so the guys in the band were like, let's plan this and stuff, but they're like, there's no way.
They were doing it for him.
There's no way this is actually going to happen. Like, with his illness and stuff, it's just, there's no way. And then...
Yeah, so
prove them all wrong.
They did their very first show, and the one guy said right up until went on stage, he's like, "There's no way this is happening."
The guitarist, yeah,
no way this is happening. And they showed clips because obviously at that point, like they were recording a lot of it because it's like not the stereotypical farewell tour. It's literally. And they didn't even know at this point if he was going to last the whole tour.
Well, that's the thing. Well, Gord Downey made a joke about that. He's like, I'm going to look like a real asshole if I live another 7 years.
Well, yeah, right? Like,
that's really good.
Yeah. That's funny. But it's true because they don't know, right? So it's
exactly.
like, we know I'm healthy enough to go, but... to do this tour, but
the thing with,
how long do I have? You just know.
Yeah.
The progression, if you think about it, is actually very fast. Because, I mean, obviously with a brain tumor, it's a lot of, like, the memory, but then anyway, we'll talk about that. But, yeah, so they went out, they did their first show, they were all just like, well, because nobody really, I don't even think he knew if he could do it, to be honest.
Well, I think, it was one of these, like, hey, let's give it the old college try. Let's go out there and
they did it.
And they did it, yeah.
And they were all just like, what the hell?
Yeah, because they said he got stronger as the shows went on.
That's what they said, that they did more shows. He started to get back to more of his old self, like, I guess memory and stuff. And that's probably, the muscle memory starts to just come back. And,
Well, and so they started out in Vancouver, right? And then they came all the way back. But yeah, I can't remember how many shows they did altogether. Like, it wasn't a crazy amount of shows. I think every
they did like 7 or 8. I think they hit every province and stuff like that.
Because again, like, I mean, it sucks to sort of say it that way, but like, there's a clock ticking.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, they knew.
Like, so I mean, obviously, super hardcore fans. I mean, these concerts are super emotional. Like, watching the footage of like the end of the show and like them all together, and like you can see he's just like drained.
Yeah.
I can't even. Can you imagine doing a concert healthy?
Oh, I know.
And then doing a concert.
Yeah.
Dying.
Oh yeah.
Legitimately
being
dying.
that sick. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, I can't even. And no. Okay. So that aside, I mean, I think I'm going to assume. I shouldn't say think or I know. I mean, obviously, I'm going to assume that Gord Downie had some sort of peace at that point that this is what was happening to him, and you kind of have that. But imagine being the 4 best friends behind him.
Well, that's the thing too. Like, these guys, knowing that, but like they're still, and that's, I think that was but that was part of the hard part too. They knew he was going to pass away at some point.
Yeah.
But they're like, what do we do now?
And he told them, get another singer, and they were like,
yeah, well, that's you could not. That would have. They're not. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't. You can't replace your father. That would have.
No.
Yeah.
So, well, especially, so they tour, they make it to Kingston. Their final show, of course, is going to be in Kingston. I mean, how can it not be in Kingston?
Yeah, basically finished where it all started.
Full circle, right?
So they aired it live and
on the CBC,
and cities all across the country had viewing parties. I mean, Toronto, we're in a city that has like 190,000 people, so relatively small. We had a viewing party in our city, and I think
people had them in their backyards or their cottages.
But I think every single person that lived in this city was there.
It was crazy.
We went down early because we were like, oh, we'll go down. It was downtown, like where we lived. It was right on the lake at the nice. It's a big park there.
We're just like, let's go.
We were like, oh, we'll go check it out, like because we were all hip fans. So I mean, like, it was super emotional. So we want to see this to get part of it.
I didn't really understand it, to be honest, at the time.
And we got down there, and there was like what, maybe 100 people. Like there was people, but like it was nothing crazy, but. I still will I will never forget that. I remember, halfway through that show, looking through, I'm like, holy shit! There's like, I don't even know, like a couple thousand people. Like
it was way more.
Tens of thousands.
It was insane.
Of people.
Like the park was just a sea of people. They had to get the police in there to close down the roads because it was just this massive people. It was crazy.
Well, I think it just started to like grow as people
I think everyone
were like,
knew what was happening, and everyone just wanted to be a part of it because it was just such like a crazy, sad story, but like just this beautiful moment that everyone wanted to be part of it. It was crazy. Yeah, I'll never forget that. Like I couldn't believe how many people were down there.
And people like just crying.
On
the CBC documentary, like all sorts of people just crying watching this.
Because again, if you think about it, I mean, it's easy to kind of remove yourself from it. But even now, thinking about it, and I have no attachment to the Tragically Hip as far as sentimental or anything. But you think about it, we're all watching somebody who is dying. And it's just so final, right?
Like it's not
it's like you are literally never going to see him sing again.
Yeah.
No, this is it.
Yeah, this is their...
It's a hard concept to grasp, right? Like, it's just like, what?
Well, it's like, it's not just that the band's breaking up. Yeah. It's like, no, the lead singer's dying.
That's exactly it. It's not like
there's no chance for a reunion.
No.
Like in 15 years, they're not going to do like a hell freezes over type, like the type thing. It was like,
as a human being, it's just so tragic.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like this guy, he was only 53, like he was 50. He was young.
Not that old.
Like they still had plenty of years left to do this, and
So they did the concert. I mean, it was watched by 12 million people. Like insane. That's insane for Canada.
11 million people, which we have like 30 something.
11 million households.
11 million households. That's right. So that's basically like almost every house in the country was watching it.
Like, that's what they said.
It's nuts. It's amazing.
And that might not sound like a lot to some of you, but for Canada, that is a huge number.
Yeah.
Like, that's huge.
Oh, yeah.
There's like 40 million people in Canada?
Yeah.
So, an average household of 3 or 4 people, that's everybody.
Yeah. Like everyone I know watched it. Like you'd see people on Facebook, and then they showed like the different, the news all over the country. Like it was everywhere, coast to coast to coast.
That happened. It was super emotional. Like oh my God, it just makes me want to tear up thinking about it. But watching them all at the end of that concert, because that was
I don't know how they all kept it together. Like
he said, the one guy's like, I had to disassociate. The guitar player was
like, I just had to
because I wouldn't be able to perform.
No, he said I wouldn't be able to play my guitar, let alone like if I let myself.
But at the end, just seeing them all standing there and hugging. But I'm not gonna lie, it's like any little bit of strength that Gord Downie had, he used for that tour, because the moment he sang that last note or played that last song, you could see it on his face. It was like all of a sudden it was like, wow, he's a sick man. You could just see his face. It was weird. It was weird.
Even I just kind of thought like his whole hat was that that had to be some sort of like, with the one feather. And so I thought that was sort of like a symbolic.
Well, we'll talk
about I thought it was also to cover like scars from the surgery and stuff.
Might have been.
Did he even have surgery though? I thought they couldn't do.
Yeah, you could see the other side of his scar. I thought it was more of a symbolic gesture of like.
Which could tie to
the tumor and the one flower, like the bright feather and stuff like that.
Something because he was tied to the Indigenous community, which we'll really briefly talk about because it's super important. But just seeing that.
Well, that's the thing. Then, so after that, when it's kind of like, okay, they're all, they're done, and
I'm not gonna lie, like you kind of forget about it because it was like just over a year later after that he passed away. So you don't hear much, and they were very private, obviously.
Yeah, but you just touched on it though. Then after all this, then he starts the Downie Wenjack Foundation and really gets involved in Indigenous rights and with Indigenous people here in Canada, which is crazy. Yes. After all of this, sick, ready, at some point going to die in the near future with his tumor, and he still puts out albums and starts a foundation to try and help spread. Even in his final concert, he called out Prime Minister Trudeau in front of the country, being like, "Do more. We're calling on you to help mend these fences." Yeah. It was crazy.
I mean, so that was his legacy project, basically.
Yeah. And Eric, are you teary?
No.
Oh my gosh, you are.
It's sad.
Oh my gosh, Eric's teary. Now you're making me teary. Oh my god, that's so sad.
Kelly has no chill.
I'm sorry, but I think the audience needs to know that you're emotional. It touches.
No,
anyway.
it's a super, super sad story.
Go on.
Gosh, I'm gonna cry. Do you need a break?
Probably.
Oh my god. Hold on, we're gonna take 2. All right, we are back and better than ever.
That's right. It's heavy stuff here.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad and it's okay. But, Steve, you were talking really quickly about how after the tour, or not, that last leg tour, he started, what was the name of the foundation again?
It's the Downie Wenjack Foundation.
Wenjack Foundation. Okay, yeah. Which was, the Indigenous community, which, Steve, for those of you that don't know, really quickly, he's just going to explain sort of what that is.
Well, no, but so Gord Downie, he really got into trying to, Canada has came up sort of the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. We now have a Truth and Reconciliation Day, so that where it came out. Canada's history with their Indigenous people is not very good, to say the least.
No.
It's a really ugly scar on our history.
Yeah.
And Gord Downie was really a big advocate to, try and work out these resolutions and, sort of build some bridges between and reconcile this horrible past and acknowledge it and recognize it. Educate. And like I said, he actually called out Trudeau at the concert saying like, hey, we're looking at you to fix this and do something.
Exactly.
So he started a foundation called the Downie Wenjack Fund, which is named after, it was a young boy named Channy Wenjack, I think his name was, or Charlie Channy, I think his name was.
I think so.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because he was in a residential school when he was 12, and it was so bad there and so awful that he ran away to try and run home, and he actually froze to death in the middle of the woods trying to escape this thing. Mm-hmm. So they named the foundation after him, and they're just trying to raise money, for Indigenous rights and stuff like that. So we'll put a link in the description of this so you guys can check it out if you want to see what that's all about.
And I think the biggest thing that he wanted was just to people to be, because I'm Canadian through and through, but I mean I need to be educated, and he wanted people to be educated, like you said, recognize, educate, reconcile.
Don't push it under the rug. Yeah, bring it out to the light. Exactly. Don't try and.
We're not perfect, and we're not a perfect country by a long shot.
No,
exactly. So rather than trying to just hide in the past, bring it out, expose it, and
talk about it.
Exactly.
Try and heal. Everyone heal about it. Because there's still lots of...
He said like 150 years or 7 generations to try to heal these wounds.
There's 150 years of indignities going on. It's going to take that long to probably work through
all this.
You know, so it was very powerful stuff. But the fact that he's doing this after the Hip final concert where he is very sick, but, you know, he's still involved in this. I mean, it's just a testament to, you know, this guy, he was a super passionate, caring guy, and he loved, you know, clearly loved Canada and so it was just it was phenomenal.
They also really talked, somebody had mentioned that, you know, they never talked about it, but over the years the Tragically Hip had given millions of dollars to charity.
They would do lots of like charity stuff, charity concerts, donations, raising money.
One of the concerts they're giving money to War Child.
Like there's lots of charitable stuff, and whether it was internationally, nationally, locally, everywhere. They were big on that stuff, which is it's nice to hear.
So he's doing all that stuff. They showed some clips. They said that, so that was the summer, like August when their last concert was. So during, you know, the fall, the winter, he was kind of like, you know, doing his thing. But then I think at the beginning of that summer of 2017, they kind of were like, that's when the sort of drastic decline happened, where they had a few clips of like home videos of him. And I mean, he clearly was very sick. He was lost a lot of weight. His speech, he couldn't talk very well.
All he could say was like, I love you to people most of the time. Like, I remember,
and it was slurry.
Yeah, you could tell he was definitely like,
near the end. And that's the horrific part about brain cancer, right, is like all those things.
Well, it steals all your dignity, and it
steals who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
So they showed a few clips of that, which was just like, oh, and you know, and the one, I think it was the drummer, the guy that I like, the drummer was talking about how you know, he went to see him, took his kids, he had young kids, took his kids to see him,
to meet Gordon for the first time, because he had kids. He had kids sort of later in life after the band had sort of, you know.
And I think a lot of the band had said, except for the one guy who was friends from way back in high school, the Langlaw guy. But a lot of them had said, like, you know, we kind of didn't really want to, like, we were getting updates from the brother about what was going on, but we didn't really see him, or, you know, like that kind of thing.
Living in you know, out of the city, you know, couple hours away and stuff like that.
So the drummer went and saw him, and then, you know, it was like the same thing where it's just, you know, the sappy stuff and all this stuff, and then he died the next day, wasn't it?
Or it was a couple days later.
So let me get the exact date, because I don't want to be wrong.
Probably want to be right on the date of this.
It was October 17th, 2017.
Actually, that's coming up.
Yeah.
In a
really soon,
didn't even realize that, to be honest.
Jeez.
So he died, and it was basically Canada was in mourning for like.
Oh yeah, the Prime Minister went on TV, talked, and was, you know, tearing up because they were kind of friends, you know, and how much you can be friends with the Prime Minister, but in personal life they had some relationship, you know.
Yeah.
The Parliament Hill, they had the flags at half-mast. And it was everywhere.
Even in our own city, and I imagine other cities did too, but in our own city at the City Hall, they had a book that you could go sign.
Yeah, that's right, they did, yeah.
I signed it, why not? I mean, it's just very like, I think I signed it. That might have been for...
Are you thinking of Beard Guy? Never mind.
No, I'm pretty sure I signed it for that.
Yeah, okay, I don't, but no, they did something like that, But I mean, it was just sad because, you know, for 20 years they were, like you said, for us, our people our age, you know, Gen Xers, they were the soundtrack of Canada. Like, they were, you know, everywhere. They were huge. Like, you know, those massive albums they put out, like, you know.
The bandmates who were being interviewed obviously were just like, you know, it was devastating. Like, nothing, even though for a year and a half or 2 years we've known this was going to come, like, you never really, until it's there, right?
Yeah, like some of the band members are like, they're still not over it.
No. But I mean, like, at the same time, like, this is going to sound weird, but at the same time, like, how special is it that they had that last tour?
Well, no kidding, but the finish in Kingston like they did, like, what a, you know, you couldn't have put a nicer bow on it in terms of, and that's even what they said on their way out from that last show off the stage, and Gordon Downey said it to the guys, that felt like the last Hip show.
Like that felt
like good. It was not so much of what hit, but just the way to finish this band, regardless of what's going on health-wise or whatever, but this was like the perfect way to wrap up this journey.
Yeah.
It was crazy,
Yeah, it's bizarre. And I had a point and I forget now.
I don't know, but yeah, so it's just, I mean, the documentary was fantastic. It was phenomenally done.
Yeah.
Definitely worth checking out, I think.
Oh my gosh, there was something I was going to say, though, that was about something. Oh, I hate that. I was concentrating so hard on remembering, and then one thing made me forget. But I think it was something else in the documentary that they talked about. But, oh, no. So, I mean, so they were all like, you know, one of the biggest things for a lot of the guys was like the guy with the long hair. I forget his name. Sorry.
Rob,
he sounds like
player.
Gene Simmons. Holy crap!
He did.
Oh my gosh! But anyway, he so they were all just like, "What do we do?" And he basically was like, "I went on a downward spiral and was just drunk."
He was just drinking. Yeah,
I was drunk because
that's
like,
what he coped. He said.
Well, and he's like, "But who am I other than the guy? I'm the Tragically Hip. Like, who am I?"
The thing, because that's the thing. These guys, it's like not only did you just lose like your
career,
because these guys, like they sort of said, these guys are in front. They're getting a marriage, really. Like like this,
they were brothers.
It's a 30-year marriage.
Yeah, but so it's like not only did you just lose this guy that you had this 30-year run with that changed your lives, but so that's over. But now it's like like you're not going to get another singer. So it's like who am I? What do I do?
So
like this is all I've ever known.
They said that Gord said get a new singer because I guess they had conversations like what are we going to do? He's like get a new singer, and then the one guy was like there was like less than 0% chance that we were ever
no they're just
like that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So
I can totally see that.
But
that
then,
long a time you're not going to.
What was that TV thing they did? And they had
like
that girl.
A Junos thing.
But
that was like 5 years later.
Yeah.
No, I know, but I'm saying it was kind of nice because they were talking about how they did that performance on TV, and they were like, "What are we gonna do? Like, who's gonna?"
Yeah.
And
it was Feist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leslie Feist. Yeah.
But they were just like, "Oh my God, he would have loved this. This is perfect."
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They're like he would have loved having her a female singer who
and she did a great job.
She sounded really good, and just obviously a totally different sound because it's a woman versus a man and stuff like that. But it was a really nice. They did a nice little tribute there.
I was watching them all like as they were showing that piece of that performance, and I was looking at them, and you could just see they were all. I don't know. It must have been such a weird feeling for them.
Oh, probably. We haven't played in 5 years, and the first time you do, it's. With a totally different singer and stuff. It probably felt really good to be back on stage too. And some, like you probably miss all that, and it's probably a lot of emotions going through it at that time.
Yeah, exactly.
Weird, but it's a very sad, but like at the same time, just sort of talking it out and thinking about it, like it's almost like the whole like it's all poetic-y, which he would have loved. He was so poetic. He loved, like everything like that.
Yeah,
you know?
That's what I'm saying. Like you couldn't to wrap up in your hometown like that. Playing on the CBC to like the entire country and broadcast around the world.
But it is not even that. Just the fact that they were probably never gonna get back. Like it sounded very fractured right before he got ill.
Yeah.
The relationship.
No. Yeah.
And I just always wonder, like again, like God forbid you don't want anybody to get sick, but it's like a weird thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
look at how it ended.
Might have broken. They were definitely something they were getting closer to splitting up.
And it would have been nasty. And like,
or just calling it a day.
Or not even so much, but they might have just been like, okay, you know what? We're just going to...
Yeah.
But they ended...
We're just going to like let it be as it is.
Yeah.
But they ended so like, I mean, tragically, but peacefully too. It's weird. It's a weird thing. I don't know.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's
crazy.
Yeah, it's really sad, but this weird kind of beautiful thing. It's weird.
It's almost like perfect given like what I would picture Gord Downie to be like.
Well, given the situation and the scenario and all this stuff, it couldn't have ended more perfectly with the cards they were all dealt.
But comment below and let us know what your favorite Tragically Hip song is. Yeah, there's so many.
More than one to choose
so many of them,
But I find it interesting because a lot of times people's favorite songs are like not the popular songs.
No, that's the thing. I mean, they have a lot of albums and stuff like that. So I had a couple of their CDs and stuff like that. But I was not like a diehard Hip fan, so I don't know all their like deep cuts and stuff
tracks,
like that. But
But I think I'm going to go listen to some Tragically Hip.
Absolutely. Like I said, if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's on Amazon Prime. I'm assuming it's available on like Prime in the US and stuff like that. But
I would think so.
Here's
I don't
know. The thing. Even if you are not a quote-unquote Tragically Hip fan like myself, but you're in Canada, like watch it. Seriously,
it's worth
watch
it.
It's really good.
4 episodes, within an hour. It's like 4 hours long.
It's 4 1-hour episodes.
And I mean, I was
really,
like,
really well done.
I was glued to the TV. I was like, whoa, and like
Well, because they have it's good because they have a lot of concert footage, old footage, interviews, and stuff like that. So they have a lot of new, old, and they did a really good job with it. Lots of cameos from Canadian celebrities and stuff like that, talking about their experiences or memories of the band too.
Jim Baruchel, Dan Aykroyd.
Who looked like he just rolled out of bed in his underwear. I don't know what that was.
I don't know.
He's a Habs fan, so comes to slack.
Yeah, check it out for sure. At the very least, check it out for some like sort of Canadian nostalgia.
Absolutely,
Oh, there's nothing that makes you watching that or you'll feel like a nice, proud Canadian.
It's just a really, really nice story, yeah.
It is. Tragic, but nice.
Tragically Hip.
There you go, the Tragically Hip.
All right, guys, on that note, I think we're going to say goodbye for today, but we thank you so very much for listening, and we will see you in the next one.
Take care, everybody.
Bye,
Thanks
guys.
for watching.
Bye.